Hey, Mike, what do Kelly Slater and PT have in common?
I don't know. They're both world champs?
Nope, they both own Endless Summer box set.
Oh my God, rad. You guys, you can get it too. The link's in the show notes.
Foot out joke food. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Food. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. 100 foot out.
Hey everybody, welcome to the QuiverCast, where we chat with surfers from all around the world, from all walks of life, and we get their story. Find us at www.thequivercast.com. I am Mike, your host. Let's get into the show. Hello, everybody. This is Mike here with the QuiverCast, and I have a super duper special guest, and I'm very excited about. Big fan since started surfing as a Grom. I got Mr. Peter Townend, or PT. How are you, Pete?
I'm great, mate, and we're here in Huntington Beach this morning, and looks like it might rain again. we can use the rain.
We could, and yesterday was beautiful.
It was as beautiful a day as you will see in Southern California. This time of year is my favorite time in Southern California.
In fall?
Yeah, I mean, because you get the end of the south swells and the beginnings of the north and west swells, and you get the combo days. And usually, actually, right now, the water's probably the warmest it's been all year. So it's a great time in Southern California right now.
It is, and it's peaky.
Yeah, that's the combination of the
swells.
Leftover south and the start of the west and norths.
Yes. Okay, so when you were a Grom and you started surfing, you kind of started surfing a little later than probably most people, right?
Well, the difference was back in, the 60s, you're talking about the mid-60s, is that the younger kids weren't as allowed to go surfing, at least in Australia where we grew up, until you ended up in what we call the clubbies and the nippers. That's like junior lifeguards. So your parents, most of our culture in Australia grows up in the surf club era, not the surfboard riding clubs. That really didn't start to happen until, mid to late 60s. But before that, your family would be in the clubs at the beach, the lifeguard clubs. And my dad had been in there, and he said I couldn't have a surfboard until I had my bronze medallion, which is your qualification as a lifeguard.
Okay.
Right? And so I got my bronze medallion at 14, and that Christmas I got my first surfboard. So that's why we didn't start till later. Very few people in those days, we were riding rubber mats, standing up on that, but we didn't have surfboards in that until you were, 13, 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that range. Today, though, the little kids, oh my God, you go to the beach now, you go to an NSSA contest and they have the push-in division, dad's allowed to go out and push you in.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that's a good question. Do you think it's too early now?
Nah, not at all.
Okay.
I mean, because now you're in the development of surfing as a sport and just as an activity. Now you have many generations of surfboard riding, and so it's generationally hand down. I mean, my granddaughter, she's 12 going on 13, but she's been standing up on a surfboard since she was 9,
Yeah.
And that really didn't happen. So now it's generational, it's family orientated. And here, even in America now, we're starting to have the board rider clubs like we have in Australia, the surfboard riding clubs. And you're having divisions that are aimed at those little kids.
Yes. So kids are better now, earlier.
Oh, way better. I mean, go to any of these contests right now and you got 10, 12-year-olds already doing aerials.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, because in my era, I never got in the air except by accident.
Yeah. That's funny. Did your dad surf?
My dad was a beach guy, but he wasn't really a surfer. He was a lifeguard, though, a clubbie,
Okay.
And when you're in the clubbies, you paddle the skis and you ocean swim and you ride in the old school surf boats, the ones you see crash and everything.
Yeah.
And so I grew up doing that, of course, and then surfing took over, of course.
And how many guys were surfing back then?
In Coolangatta, that's today everyone knows it as the Superbank, but back in our day, the Superbank really didn't exist, which is an outside sandbar because of the sand pumping around the Duranbar. But in those days, it was the distinct points. It was Snapper Rocks, Rainbow Bay, Greenmount Point, and Cura. Okay. And you were, it was funny, you were kind of a local to one of those spots in Coolangatta. Today, there's no such thing, because it's just the Superbank. And so, like growing up in those kinds of waves, that's why we, particularly my generation, Michael Peterson, Wayne Bartholomew Rabbit, and myself, we got good really fast just because of the waves and the warm water. I mean, we all grew up just in our trunks.
Yeah. So what happened in the wintertime?
You're still wearing your trunks until, wetsuits started to come along and guys started to wear, long sleeve vests, 2 millimeter vests and stuff like that. But we never really wore full wetsuits in Queensland. They do today, which I laugh when I go home. Bunch of wussies, But, the first wetsuit I had from home was a, long sleeve jacket, like a rip curl 2 millimeter jacket. And in the wintertime, the water never gets cold. It's the offshore wind gets a little chilly in the wintertime.
The waves there now, are they better then or now?
The Superbank's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's perfect.
But those days of Cura, in the late 60s and early 70s, those were special, and before they had built the groin, the breakwater on the end. And then it was kind of shitty for a little bit when they first built it, but then the sand built up around actually there was a window of time when the groin was built that it was even better. And those days were magical because, Cura would be, 6 to 8 feet. It wouldn't be crowded. I mean, it'd be lucky if you had 10 guys in the lineup. And,
wow.
And I lived up on the hill behind Cura, where the big red brick church that kind of signifies Coolangatta. I live one street back from there, and my best mate, Alan Miscampbell, and I would surf before school, and many times there'd be no one out. It'd be just us. It'd be 4 to 6 foot Cura with no one out. Because the worker guys, the guys, the bartender guys and those guys, they'd all be sleeping in, and they didn't get up, and we'd already be on the bus to school,
Yeah. Or did you think surfing would grow to what it is today, back then?
I don't think we really cared. I mean, we get up and we just wanted the waves to be good.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
And so we started to care about it as we got good competitively because in the early 70s, pro surfing contests were starting to happen, particularly in Hawaii. I mean, you had the Duke contest and the Smirnoff and the Pipe Masters, and that was early 70s. And then eventually that morphed into a World Championship Tour, of which, I became the first champ in 76. Mm-hmm. So then we could feel that it was going to grow. I mean, in our mind, there probably wasn't such a term as pro surfer from like competitive surfing. Yeah. But there were guys that you would say were pro surfers, like Corky Carroll, for instance. I mean, he had endorsements with Miller Lite and Jansen, and right. So he was a pro surfer, but it wasn't because of competition.
Right.
That changed when the IPS announced me as the first world champ, 76. Now that the pro surfer definition was you were on the pro tour, and that's when it really changed. And of course, that led to here in California, right here in Huntington Beach, the formation of the ASP in 1983. And, we're sitting in the Huntington Beach Surf Museum right now. And if you look around, you can see about to get hung it's the 40th anniversary of the OP Pro.
Yes.
And that really changed professional surfing in America. It was the first rated on the World Tour event in California. They were having events on the East Coast, Florida Pro and Grogs in New Jersey, but there was nothing on the West Coast. And OP Pro was the first. In those days, the tournament directors could kind of do whatever they wanted, right, from point of view of the format. So we instituted stuff. Ian Cairns was the event director, and I was an assistant on it. And we instituted stuff that had never been done before. The priority buoy was the first time priority was ever used.
Oh, is that OP Pro?
Yeah.
Really?
And instant scoring. We didn't have computers, but what we did is we had a girl, Meg Bernardo, who's still running WSL North America today. she would run up and down the stairs with the scorecard and put them on a board so the commentators could read it out to the audience.
Wow. Wow.
And that was all new stuff. That was the first time the actual audience could hear what was going on from point of view of scores, because you'd go to a contest and, I think he won. But you had no idea, you know, until they announced until they tallied it up and then announced the results. Now you knew who was winning in the heat. And it changed the dynamics.
It did.
Yeah.
So whose idea was that?
It was a combination of Ian and myself. You know, we had founded, remember, the Bronze Daisies, and we were way forward thinking about what professional surfing could be.
You were trying to build it at that point.
Yeah, we just saw that. We were influenced by what was going on in Formula One motor car racing and the tennis tour at that time, because we had incredible tennis players, Rod Laver, John Newcomb, Ken Rosewell, that were dominating worldwide tennis. They were winning the US Open in New York and all that. And we went, well, why can't surfing be like that? And that was the thinking. And so that was driving us to make a tour. You know, and we kind of had already started to do that in Australia. We thought up the first ratings, how to do it based on Formula One car racing. And in Australia, we announced the rating before the IPS ever did. And so we had a rating in Australia for Australian competition and international competition, which ultimately led to the IPS. That what we were doing was adopted by Fred Hemmings and Randy Rarick. In September of 1976, those guys announced that we were going to declare a world champion before the Hawaii season. I mean, they announced before the Hawaii season they were going to declare a world champ at the end of that season. And there were 4 events left, which was the Duke, the Smirnoff, the World Cup, and the Pipe Masters. And I had an incredible season that year. I made 3 of the 4 finals. Okay. And I missed the final of the Pipe Masters where I won, lost in the semi-finals. In those days, it wasn't man-on-man, remember? It was 6-man heats.
Wow, it's crazy.
Right.
Wow, that was a lot there.
You might have to edit that, mate.
No, it was excellent. I just want to try to break it down a little bit. So are you saying you and Ian, watching other sports, were building on what they were doing?
Right.
With the thought of building surfing.
That there should be a world tour. We were already going to Hawaii since we had come here for the last of the old school ISA World Contest in San Diego, which I got 3rd. I got the bronze medal, you know. And, And then that winter we went to Hawaii for the first time, and because I had got 3rd, I got invited to the Duke. Yeah. And I made the final, like my first time there as a teenager. And so that opened up me to international competition. Then I was getting invited to all of the events on the North Shore those next winters. And now we're talking, you know, 72, 73, 74, 75. There was no world tour yet. There were events in the world. Bells was an event. Yep. The Gunston 500 in South Africa. The Florida Pro in Florida.
But none of them were tied together.
It was not tied together. It was just individuals and individual events. And what I call, I termed it the Gypsy Tour. Yeah, we just went to the contest going, if I got enough money to buy an air ticket, can I win enough to get home?
Or get stranded.
Right.
So who convinced those people putting the separate events on the Bells to all collaborate
Fred
together?
Hemmings.
It
was Fred Hemmings who got a hold of all the tournament directors of the time, which, you know, was Peter Burness in South Africa, the Griffin brothers in Florida. Doug Warbrick in Australia with the Bells contest, and then in that same window a big contest came into Sydney called the Coke contest, and that was Graham Cassidy. And you know, the Coke contest was the most prolific because it was on TV and there was big prize money. And so it was Fred Hemmings that called all those guys up and said, look, I'm going to start a world tour. Do you want your event to be counted? And that's how it really started.
Okay. Was everyone on board like right away, or was there resistance?
No one that said no. They all thought it was a great idea because what it was going to do, it was going to make, instead of the Gypsy Tour, it was going to make more guys go to more events, right? Because they wanted to be world champ.
Right. Yeah. So how was becoming the first world champ?
Well, you know, I was honoured, but at the time realised that it really didn't mean anything because there was no one else to be compared to, right?
Right.
Like today, it's way more important. My name's first, And
Which is important,
right?
very
And you
important.
got Kelly Slater's name there 11 times.
Yeah.
And Andy Irons, Mick Fanning, Tom Curran, and all the other guys as well. But now it really means something. Back then, I'm sure you've heard the story. Is so Fred Emmings calls up and says, "Hey, listen, I need you to come into town to the Outrigger Canoe Club. You've won. We need to get a photo."
Yeah.
And so I go in, and he doesn't even have a trophy for the world champ.
Yeah.
He gets a trophy out of the Outrigger Canoe Club cabinet that's not even for surfing, with an inscription. He turns it around backwards so you can't see the inscription. They took that photo, and the next day, in the Honolulu Advertiser, which is Hawaii's biggest newspaper, there's a picture of Peter Townend, world surfing champion, with a trophy that's not even for the championship, right?
Okay.
And that's how pro surfing began, as we know it today.
Right. What was your thoughts when you took that picture?
You just didn't really have any thoughts, because the next day when I got the paper, I was going, "Wow, that's cool," right?
Okay.
And of course, that. Because in those days the international press were connected, like telex machines and stuff. So the next thing happened is it was a big story in Australia when I went home to Australia. I mean, I had the press meet me in the airport.
Oh, it's rad.
Right, all of a sudden, and because, historically, remember, we had Midget Farrelly and Nat Young had won the old ISA World Championships. Midget's the first person to hold the title, world champion, in 1964, and Nat then won in California in 1966. So all of a sudden, wow, there's a big interest in surfing again. Here we have another Australian who's a world champion.
Okay.
And so it was big news in Australia. I mean, it was front page news.
Did you become a celebrity, like overnight? You were known in the surfing world.
It became a celebrity from a point of view of our culture, but I'm not saying that it was a huge thing, like in the mainstream.
Okay.
Today, I'm way more famous in the mainstream today, right? Because my name's first, right?
Okay,
and so whenever they talk about the world tour,
they go straight to you.
The commentators, like Joe on the WSL will bring up back in '76, PT did this, so I'm way more famous, on that level today than I was back then.
Okay. So as a Grom surfing, you never thought you were just surfing in that day. You were living moment to moment. Later on, when you turned pro and you got the pro circuit started.
Well, there was another really important part of all that.
Okay, let's hear that.
That is that many of us were in the surfboard industry shaping.
Okay.
And
Who's many of us?
Well, there were Mark Richards, Simon Anderson, myself, Terry Fitzgerald, Reno Avalera, Jerry Lopez. We were all shaping our own boards. So imagine today, there isn't one guy on the professional tour today that's shaping their own boards, right?
No.
And so there was that interaction, and that's how many of us were making money, like when we weren't traveling, that's how we got the money to travel. And I, in Australia, worked for Gordon & Smith Australia, the same Gordon & Smith from here, and I was an ambassador and also a shaper designer for the brand. And so were many others. I mean, Simon was in those days, Shane, before he started Energy with the thruster, and Terry Fitzgerald had Hot Buttered. Those were famous brands that, ended up here in America too. So that connection, there was this connection all over the world. I mean, you'd go to South Africa and you'd guess shape.
Okay.
You'd go to Safari Surfboards and shape some boards while you were in town.
Just to make
people
money.
Would want them because in those days, every shaper, we all had different ideas of what worked. And if someone liked what you were doing as far as the way you were surfing, they would want to get a board from you.
Okay.
That's so different to today.
Oh,
right.
I can't even fathom that.
Right. I mean, there is endorsement type success though. Like for instance, today with Timmy Patterson and a tallow, right? He has the Stoken model, right? And they can't make enough of that thing, right? Because everyone wants to surf like a tallow on the skate park, right? And so that endorsement is still there, but not where the actual tallow doesn't shape the boards. We were shaping the boards.
Yeah, Timmy is.
Yeah. So that was a really important part though. In that evolution in the 70s of the whole pro tour.
You guys shaping and support yourselves, basically.
Right.
Okay. When did you stop shaping? Do you still shape boards today?
I stopped. Well, my son challenged me to shape a shape off, and I shaped a board. My long-time friendship with Rusty Priesendorfer, which I first started when I first came in '72 when I got the bronze medal, and he's a legendary shaper, the Rusty brand, and so I now was living in America, like from '79, and Rusty was shaping for Canyon. And I was getting the boards from him. Canyon had a pretty great team. Sean Thompson and myself, Wes Lane and Dave Parmenter. I mean, their team was as good as anybody's. Mm-hmm. And then Rusty, in '85, went off to start Rusty. Somewhere around that time, the Skill Planer went out of production, and everyone used the Skill Planer. Yeah. And I had bought one. It had only shaped 100 boards. Mm-hmm. And Rusty says, "Listen, you're not shaping much anymore." Now I was already working for Surfing Magazine as an ad director. He says, "I want that planer." Okay. He says, "You give me that planer and I'll shape you a new board for life every year."
Oh, sweet.
And I'll make it pink. He said, "That's my trademark, pink surfboards." Yes. And he's lived up to that. So I stopped shaping then. Okay. And, so we were talking, around 84,
Okay. Did you enjoy shaping? And how many boards did you shape?
I enjoyed the creativity. Okay. I mean, to give you a good example of that, because of the G&S connection. Yes. So I would come over here in the 70s and go to Gordon and Smith to see Larry Gordon in San Diego. And the one time that I went, I happened to go there to see Mike Eaton, fantastic shaper that's no longer with us. Was Bing and he had made my first boards for the North Shore. When I got in that Duke final, I was riding the Eaton Bing. Oh, okay. And so I went to see Mike. And that day that I was there, Skip Fry was there shaping. I had never met Skip. And he's in the booth and he's shaping a fish. And at that point, I'd never had a fish. I lost to the fish in the '72 contest because Bliers and the Weevil were riding fishes. Yeah. So I got introduced to Skip and we're talking, and I was asking, because that's what you did. You were a shaper. You wanted to see what. He showed me what was going on with the fish, and I went back to home in Cronulla, where GNS was located, and I made my first fish. And then I continued to make fishes and ride them in small surf for the rest of my career. And so that was the influence and connection in those days. That's how stuff traveled. I mean, same thing when everyone forgets that the first time anyone ever saw a thruster was here at the Caton in '81 when Simon turned up, walked down the beach with the board with 3 fins, and everyone laughed at him. Yeah. We're all still riding them.
Okay, were you there that day?
Oh yeah, I was.
Did you laugh?
No, because I was a shaper. See, that's the difference. Okay. I was going, wow, Simon's on to something new here. Mm-hmm. I wonder if it works. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, he went on that year to win bells and the Coke contest and the Pipe Masters in the same year on a thruster. The next year, everyone had thrusters, right?
Yes. Do you think shaping has lost its creativity as it did back in those days?
No, because now it's creatively on the CAD machine. Mm-hmm. Like even Rusty himself. I mean, he sits on the CAD all day fine tuning.
It makes sense.
on the CAD machine. Okay. I mean, that's something that's come, from the yachting world or any other technological, where you're drawing it by computer and then you're producing it. Mm-hmm. It's still creative. It's just not creative like hands-on creative, where you're in the bay with your planer in hand and your tools and you're creating that way.
Okay, what about like fin placements and stuff?
Yeah, well, that's all part of that creative process. I mean, It's like Mark Richards is, one of my best mates. Of course. He says, I'm not a shaper anymore. I'm a finisher.
Okay.
Because
does rails.
Because the board comes from his CAD drawings, right? And he's basically doing a little sanding, little fine tuning. He says, I'm a finisher, not a shaper. Yeah.
I wonder, it's weird. It's interesting. And I saw you last week at the boardroom. Right. And those guys, the Jason Bennett versus Timmy Stamps. Right. Those guys started from blank.
And Rick Rock won. Rick Rock used to work with me at Surfing Magazine. He was the store guy, the storage room guy.
Surfing is so all together. Somebody did this at Surfing. You're a world champ, and then you're working at Surfing Magazine, then you're working for Rusty, and you're working. Right. Everyone seems to be in this bubble, the guys in the industry.
Well, I think all of that's changing too, because now we're in the Olympics. We're just in the 2-day surf park summit in San Diego at La Jolla at the Scripps Institute about the development of artificial waves, both natural, well, they're not natural, waves that are generated like the Kelly Slater pool, and versus standing waves where it's like the
flow rider,
the flow rider, right? Well, there's like 10 technologies now in the world, and this conference was really interesting. And they were talking about you have to have your wave park be core, So, and I go, define core. I go, it's not core. We're not core anymore. I go, we're in the Olympics. That's the mainstream as you can get.
Yes, of course.
We're not core. And just and I go, imagine
That's
what's
true.
going to happen 10 years from now. Think 10 years forward, and they've had 2 more Olympics with surfing in it.
Yes.
Right? We're as mainstream as you can get, right?
And do you think in 10 years, 20 years, or how long, till everyone in Middle America, St. Louis or Detroit, is surfing?
Wow, if you saw some of the plans at this conference of like the one they're building in Houston, like Houston, I didn't even know that, is the 7th largest metropolis in America, the 7th biggest city.
Yep.
They're building the biggest wave park you've ever seen. I mean, like, it's crazy. And just think so, and they've done statistical research where the surfing population of Texas is like the 5th biggest in America.
No way.
Because you got the Gulf, so they all go to the Gulf to go surfing in shitty waves.
Waves.
Now they're going to have good waves in the wave machine, right?
And they can wait for the good waves to finally come in the Gulf.
So imagine that's going to happen. I mean, one of the most successful right now is one called Alia in Switzerland, and it's doing incredible. It uses the wave garden technology, the same as the one in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And they're real successful, and you're surfing with snow-capped mountains behind you. You know,
that's rad.
Right? And so just think of that, like I said, 10 years from now, and because of the exposure of the Olympics, how many of those are going to be in the world?
Right. Okay, so back to my question. What do you think everyone in Middle America is going to have the opportunity to try surfing?
Surfing is going to be way more accessible.
Yes.
They've already, like, in the interesting thing, the Melbourne one, Urban Surf, I said it in the first conference, we have to make wave pools for kooks.
Well, they are.
Right?
Because they're just learning.
We're all kooks to start with, right?
Correct,
we all start as a kook, and then we get better, and you're not a kook anymore.
Yeah.
They found out already with the Melbourne one that the biggest opportunity of people coming to the pool to go surfing is the beginners. And on top of that, 36% of the people coming are girls.
Wow.
It's blown their mind.
That's right.
They just didn't think that before.
That's
right. Right?
Yeah.
And so the demographics of the surfing population is going to change radically because of the accessibility. You don't have to live near the beach.
Yeah.
You're going to have people that are surfing that have never seen the ocean.
Yeah. It won't translate to the ocean, though, like reading the water.
The basic skills are going to,
standing up.
How to turn and trim and do that stuff. That's going to translate, and it's going to make, if they get to the beach, like a real beach, it's going to accelerate the process of becoming a good surfer in natural waves. I mean, I brought it up the other day because they were talking about the progression of aerials at the Wacko Park, right? And like guys go there, the team people go there, and the learning curve to learn to do aerials is accelerated. I said, well, but aerials aren't going to help you at Choke Brew and Sunset and Pipeline.
Right.
So how are you going to teach them, though? And Ryan Simmons, who's the coach of the U.S. national team,
I know, Ryan.
said... He said, well, yeah, but they're going to learn the basic skills no different to you did. Well, Kelly Slater came from, shitty Florida waves, and it became the best ever. And I said, and you came from Australia, in an area where it's not known for its big surf. It's known for its perfect surf.
Yeah.
But you rode 30-foot waves in Hawaii. So you had the skill set. You just had to have the mindset to be able to handle it.
And it all translates, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. At what point did you think surfing was going to ever make it to the Olympics? Did you ever have that thought in your head? When you started the IPS?
No, we didn't have an Olympic mission. I mean, that was Fernando.
Okay.
Yeah, what we did have a vision was that we could make $1 million. We used to walk around saying, we can make $1 million being a professional surfer.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't happen for us, but it happened for the guys now. There's a lot of guys on the world tour right now that are millionaires, right? And they're making $1 million a year.
Due to sponsorship, though.
Sponsorship and endorsements.
But there, since we're talking about pro
there was
surfing.
an unbelievable. I'm sure you saw it in social media here in the last few days about Mick Fanning is now worth $20 million.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Right?
Wow.
Because whatever money he was winning prize money wise, he was investing. And
smart guy.
Right, smart guy.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys can't make that transition. But if you're smart, right, then be smart with your money. I mean, we hear it all the time about the disaster of NFL players or NBA players that make all this money and then they're broke.
Actually, there's another question I just thought of. Okay, but NBA and I don't know what sports, but I think Major League Baseball, basketball, and football, I think they all have pensions. Wouldn't that
we
be
don't
good?
have that yet.
Yeah.
That will come.
Do you think that will make it one day?
It'll come. There'll be a point in time where I would think the WSL would implement something like that. There'll be a pension plan. We'll have surfer retirement homes. I'll be in one of them.
Yeah, I love it.
You can come visit me in the retirement home.
That's actually, I'm thinking of that, and that's hilarious. That'd be so rad. Okay, you were so involved in competitive surfing in the beginning, and even today, are you involved?
Well, just a little history there. So when I moved with the America, Ian Cairns and I started a company called Sports and Marketing Services, which is what ran the OP Pro. But our first real job was running the NSSA.
Right.
And from out of that, I was really involved. I mean, I ended up being the coach. I coached Tom Curran to win the gold medal in the ISAs in my home country in '82. And then I went into the business world for 20 years, 10 years at the magazine and 10 years at Rusty. And then I came out of that with my own company. Now that's 20 years old, the Active Empire. But part of that in the Active Empire was a coaching arm. And so I came back to coaching when Surfing America, which is today USA Surfing, was founded, and coached again, and we were real successful again. And then I'm sure you heard, I was employed by the Chinese Communist government to coach the Chinese.
Yeah.
And that was, I took them on their first international appearance at the ISA Games in France in 2017. I was there for a couple of years, and then I haven't been coaching more recently, but I'm still fully engaged. I mean, I went to the WSL event in El Salvador. I go to NSSA Nationals.
Yep.
I like to keep my finger on the pulse of who the hot kids are and where they're coming from. So I'm still actively engaged in that part of the thing. I mean, what I'm doing mostly today, since I stopped doing the Chinese thing, is I'm the executive director overseeing museum operations here in Huntington Beach, where we're sitting right now.
Yeah, beautiful.
Right, and we've just finished an incredibly successful exhibit, which was Finding California Surf. It was the discovery of the surfing spots of California starting in the 1900s.
Wow.
And that was up for a year. It was the most successful exhibition we've ever done. And right now you can see the OP Pro 40th anniversary is going up.
Yeah.
And tells the story of really the birth of professional surfing contests in California in '82. So that's occupies much of my time today, and I do other little special projects, consulting on stuff and that with the Active Empire, so I'm as busy as ever and engaged in the surf culture as much as I've ever been.
So actually, there's one of my questions I have you, because you are everywhere. Every surf event I see you. They say
I would go to an opening of an envelope.
So actually, a question I had is, do you ever burn out on surfing after all these years, where you just need a break?
What I have burned out on is going surfing.
Really?
That's an interesting thing.
That is interesting.
When we started surfing and we got addicted, to the feel of that riding a wave, And you had to go surfing, like it's like you have to go surfing because otherwise you go crazy if you don't go surfing. I've lost that addiction. I don't have to go surfing anymore.
It is an addiction.
Yeah, I don't have to go surfing. I don't feel like I have to go, even if the waves are shitty, just to paddle out and catch a wave.
Yeah.
I've lost that addiction, and I've surfed very little this year at all. Although on Sunday I'm going to Cabo for a week for a man's trip, and I'll probably paddle out next week.
Okay. But as far as being on the pulse of surfing, that's not...
I'm fully engaged.
Because you love it.
I'm in a pool where we bet on every WSL.
Oh, fun.
Right?
How'd you do?
Well,
this year.
I pulled the long shot of all long shots because what we do, there's a little group of us that you have to pick the winner.
Okay. Beginning of the season kind of thing?
No, you're winner of each event.
Oh, each event, I got you.
And if you win, the other guys have to take you to Duke's and pay the bill. We ran up a big bill the other night because you know who I picked? Miguel Pupo to win Chopu. And they all said, "You're crazy, that guy ain't winning Chopu." And he did. So we had some lobsters and some rounds of Don Julio shots the other night.
Oh my goodness! But it was fun.
Well, no, and it's super fun to, and everyone in that pool there's 6 of us, and there's a rotation of you get first pick, second pick, third pick, and it rotates. Depending if you pick first this time, then you go to the bottom and you pick 6th and you work your way back up. But I picked Pupo to win Chopu, and
does winner take all? If there's no winner?
No, there's no winner, there's no Dukes.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, because they would get pretty expensive.
I won twice this year.
Really?
I picked Philippe Toledo to win bells.
And then I guess we've talked a lot about surf history. How important is it to maintain it? You being at the museum, what's the museum's full name?
It's the Huntington Beach International Surfing Museum.
Yep.
Or in HBISM, if you just want to, HBISM.
Yeah.
And it's been here for over 30 years.
Yep.
We have a couple of really institutional things like Surfing Sundays, which is every month during the summer window. We have instrumental surf music on the beach, and it's free to the public.
Sick.
And we have 6 instrumental surf bands play, and it's really popular. And then, of course, we have our exhibitions. And in the parking lot, we have the world's biggest surfboard that set the Guinness World Records, a 42-foot surfboard with 66 people on it.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed how many people come, not sometimes to come into the museum to get their photo taken under the world's biggest surfboard.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy. And I was on the board. I was I helped get the board made. People don't realise that when you build a board that big, you're building a yacht. It's not a surfboard. We built that in a yacht yard.
Wow.
And the board cost $75,000 to build.
Yeah, whose idea was it?
It wasn't my idea. It was my idea to do it here because in Australia, a guy called Nev Hyman had done it at the Quicksilver Pro at Snapper, the original one.
Yeah.
And they had 47 people on it. They actually flew that board here at a US Open. They broke the record, but they didn't pay Guinness, so it was never official. So we put 66 people on the board in 2015, right?
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
And it was a huge thing. I mean, from a marketing, promotional point of view, the photo of us on the board that day was on the front of Al Jazeera News.
Wow.
That's the biggest news outlet in the world.
Yeah.
Right? It was on the front page.
Yeah.
It was on Jimmy Fallon.
Wow.
And so people are aware of it and they know it's in, so they come and get their photo taken.
That's right.
We have a thing in Australia. It's called the Big Banana. It's a giant banana that's on the Coast Highway. Everyone stops in Australia to have their photo taken at the Big Banana because it signifies where you are.
Yeah.
Same thing with the surfboard here in the parking lot.
Just as famous as the pier? The pier is the pier. But
when it comes to surf culture,
surf culture,
it's probably more famous when it comes to surf culture.
Okay.
But I don't think it's more famous than the Huntington Pier.
Okay. At the Surf Museum, do you have an official title here?
Executive Director.
Executive Director. Yeah. How often do you guys change the displays out? Or
not that often, because you got to realize we might get tired of it, but our Huntington population is very transient because of the 4 big 5-star hotels on the beach.
Yeah.
So we got people coming through all the time that the locals might get tired of it. You got to realize though, we're a tourist destination. So the exhibits need to reflect something that's of interest to people who aren't from Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
And Finding California was really of interest. And OP Pro is going to be real too, because, I mean, look at that panel over there with Kelly Slater. It's like 16 years of age. People don't even know that's how long he's been around. I mean, the OP Pro was the 80s, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And everyone knows the riot.
I was there. I'm in that picture.
Well, it says that right there. Everyone says they were there.
No, I was there.
I'm sure you were.
I'm going to look for it after.
Many people, I mean, some people still call it the OP Pro. I mean, people still, instead of the US Open, right?
This doesn't represent the US Open?
Well, at the end it does. If you look at the last panel, it talks how it transitions from OP Pro into the US Open.
Okay. So actually, there's another question. How do companies, some of the biggest companies that were huge in surfing and supported surfing, are non-existing now, and the bigger companies are getting bought out? So let's say OP, Stubbies.
Well, yeah, but what's happened is that the sport has grown to such an extent. If you remember, the World Tour used to basically be supported by the companies, particularly Rip Curl, Quicksilver, and Billabong, and OP.
Yeah.
O'Neill to some degree.
To some.
But those companies, not many of them actually have naming rights anymore on those events. The difference back in those days, they ran the events. Each company ran their event. Now the WSL runs the event, and you buy naming rights, just like you would for crypto instead of Staples up in LA, right?
Yeah.
And so you buy naming rights now. That's where it's different. And a lot of those companies have dropped out, so it's really financed these days by the WSL and through more mainstream sponsorships, government tourism sponsorships, like
Margaret River?
Margaret River is a great example of that. The West Australian Tourism Bureau writes a big check to the WSL because it's going to bring people to Margaret River, to West Australia.
Smart.
And the same in other parts of the world.
Do you think that's going to be able to grow the sport more? Do we need to go to Targets? Do we need to go to like what NASCAR does?
Like the WSL is not profitable at the moment.
Right.
There's got to be a point in time where it has to be profitable.
It has to be, right?
Right. I mean, thank God for Dirk Ziff, right?
Okay. Supporting them, right? Being a billionaire.
If he wasn't writing the check, and pro surfing wouldn't be what it is today.
Wow, that's scary, right?
And it'd be scary if he left. Pro surfers might be working back at McDonald's.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. That's scary.
That said, the bigger events would sustain. There'd still be a bells contest, and there'd still be Pipe Masters.
Yeah. The Pipe Masters is changing Vans, is doing a whole new format on it.
Well, the Triple Crown doesn't really exist like it did anymore.
No.
So, I mean, and then above all of that now, we have surfing in the Olympics. And that's the biggest stage in sport in the world.
Okay, yeah.
And, you've got Italo and Carissa with their first gold medals in surfing.
Right.
I mean, people don't even realize what that means. I mean, Carissa Moore winning a gold medal in the Olympics made her millions in endorsements from her mainstream sponsors.
I'm glad. Happy.
She's sponsored by Visa and Procter & Gamble with the Venus shaver.
Yeah.
So that stuff's going to grow. The longer we're in the Olympics and the feeder through the ISA in collaboration with the WSL. So the WSL provides athletes into the ISA system, which gets you in the Olympics.
Okay. Another question about competitive surfing, and you being one of the original amateur people that started the whole amateur surfing in America.
The roadmap.
Oh, there you go. There's the word. Okay. Kids these days, should they put all their eggs in one basket?
Well,
because they're so competitive and crazy.
Well, no, unfortunately, the Little League syndrome has crept into surfing.
Okay, soccer.
I mean, and it's it inevitably had to happen. And I think surfing's in a fantastic place. I mean, every kid's dream these days that now, especially the girls, Carissa Moore's got an Olympic gold medal. There's little girls who are at the beach with their mums and dads and go, I want to be Carissa Moore.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, that didn't exist, remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
and so imagine in Brazil, Italo is like the mainstream star, so there's little guys in Brazil at some beach going, I'm going to win the gold medal in 10 years from now, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's all changing. I think surfing itself, two ways. Surfing as a sport is in an all-time high. Surfing as activity is even at an all-time higher high.
Oh, it's crazy.
And I mean, you know, the number one selling surfboard in the world is the Costco softboard.
Yeah.
It's the number one selling surfboard in the
100%.
world by like
100%.
They have sold 1 million wave storms.
Yeah. And now they have Jerry's name on there.
Right.
So hopefully he's making some money off that.
Well, I hope so. And good luck to him. There's people that go, how did he sell out to Costco? Well, we never made any money in our era anyway. So
Right.
I said, great for Jerry as far as I'm concerned.
No,
That he's
100%.
right?
It was all off your guys' back.
Right. And so I think surfing's in a really good place as an activity and as a sport.
And wave pools can alleviate some of the crowd. But if you...
I'm all for the more wave pools they build, the better. That means there'll be less guys at the beach.
Yeah. But you know what? If you drive down to Huntington Street now, or if you drive down to Brookers, it's probably wide open. They're all at the pier.
Yeah.
So there's still plenty of waves out
Well,
there.
and you know, these days when you're on the freeway, how many cars do you see with a Costco Wavestorm or Jerry Lowe's post metal on the roof, right?
All the time.
They come from out of town. They go straight to Costco and buy 100. And I think they're $150 these days.
Okay.
Like they strap it on the roof, and I'm going surfing.
Yeah,
right?
and that's good and bad to that, in my opinion.
I think it's good because if they get hooked, if they get addicted, what we were talking about, right?
Yeah.
They're going to want to transition to a real surfboard. It's something that they're going to want to, feel like I'm a real surfer.
Yeah.
I'm on a, I'm on a tallow Timmy Patterson Stoked model. Right?
Then they realize they buy it and it's a little board, and they realize I can't surf this thing.
Well, not until you get any good.
Yeah. How many kids have bought a board and then they're like, it's too hard for them? But anyhow, that's a whole different subject.
That's all part of the learning curve,
It
as
is
you
the
know,
learning.
as we grew up learning, right?
Yeah. When you started
as we said, you're a kook when you start.
When you started downsizing on the board and your transition, going to a smaller board, how hard was it for you? Was there a learning
interesting
curve?
for me. So I started on what would be considered right near the end of the longboard era, so 65, 66. And my first board was 8'6", but a long board.
Yeah.
8'6", because I was a little guy. But by, by 68, 69, we were down into the 7 foot range and below already.
Yeah.
And then by, the beginning of the 70s, mainly we were riding 6 foot boards pretty much.
Wow.
Except for Hawaii. In Hawaii, we were riding bigger, gunnier boards for Hawaii. They don't these days, but back in those days we did. So, it's just like, I don't think that's any different, say, like a golfer. He's not starting off with the same set of clubs that he would start if he gets any good, right?
Yeah, 100%. Okay. And then you're speaking about Hawaii, and before the podcast, you were talking about, well, first off, the most famous footage probably of you is the Big Wednesday part.
Yeah, well,
and they
Big Wednesday was an incredible, important part of my career and my life because I was the world champ when Hollywood called and said, you want to come make this movie? And it was because of my friendship with Jan Michael Vincent that I'd met on my first trip to America in 72. And they were going to pay me $1,000 a week.
Wow, that's a lot of money back then.
That was way more than I was making from being a pro surfer. And so they said that, my peer, you can't go leave the tour, you're the world champ, you got to defend your crown. And so we went in the first man-on-man stubbies, and I got quarterfinals and lost to my mate Rabbit Bartholomew. And I went, I'm going to Hollywood. I'm going to Hollywood and make some money, right? And that's what I did, and spent that next year, 77, making the movie. And then came back to the tour and had to qualify because I was not seated anymore.
Yeah, knocked off.
Then I finished number 5 in 78 and number 5 in 79. And then in
good numbers, by the way.
Yeah, so I was in the top 5 for most of the 70s.
That's awesome.
And then in 80, my daughter, Rana, was born. And that kind of changed mentally everything. I went to the first couple of events and lost early, and I just went, I'm not going to be any more famous from being PT, world champ, top 5 in the world. I need to transition into the next phase. And the next phase was Ian Cairns and I moving to California and starting our marketing company and running the NSSA We started the Body Glove Grand Prix and the Hang 10 Summer Grand Prix, which were regional tours like the Bud Surf Tour. This is before the Bud Surf Tour. Yeah. And then the OP Pro. And then my friend Bob McNona, who I had met in Hawaii in the early 70s, was publisher of Surfing Magazine, said, hey, listen, you want to come work for me selling advertising? And now I was family, so I needed more secure income and stuff. And so I went to work for Surfing Magazine in 1984 as a sales guy and ended up being the associate publisher and in the end the publisher.
But when you did the Big Wednesday, can you tell us a little bit how they found your board recently?
Yeah, well, my new landlord roommate, Chris Byrne, not the Chris Critter Byrne of Australia, Chris Byrne, California guy, is a Big Wednesday fan. And,
we all are, by the way.
Right, and a guy called Lewis Reel had got that board in an auction, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago, and he put it up for auction again in Scott Bass's gold auction from the boardroom show.
Yep.
And he brought it the other day for $20,000. So I'm living in the house with the board I rode in Big Wednesday.
Even though you say you're not always wanting to surf anymore, do you feel like paddling that thing back out?
No.
Not
at all. I don't think Chris would let me, actually, after you paid $20,000 for it. Right?
That's crazy. Is it on the wall, or where is it at?
It's in the entrance to his house.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we're just we're going to put a little like a flat screen tablet on it with the scene when I surf alone. Remember, I surf alone before I go to NAM because that's the board that I'm riding.
Okay.
And it's just going to be looping, playing when you come in the entrance of the house.
That's pretty rad, actually.
Oh yeah,
that's going to be really
cool. To be honest.
That is cool. And then you touch on moving to America. What made you make that decision besides you having a family?
Married a girl from Fountain Valley.
Okay.
I think she thought she was going to live in Australia, but that's not how it went down. We ended up living in California.
Are you an American citizen or
no?
No, you're not. Okay.
I'm a green card holder. I'm a blow-in. Okay. I pay my taxes though. You
have to. You get Social Security too, probably.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
good.
As long
good
as,
for you.
If you have an established green card and you pay, I've been paying tax for 40 years.
Right. That's a long time.
Right. So I've got I've actually haven't taken my Social Security yet. I'm letting it ride. Got to take it next year. I have a big birthday next year. I'll be 70 next year.
Wow.
And you have to take it.
Okay. Take it.
Yeah.
You worked for it.
I've built up enough that I can actually live on my Social Security.
Yeah. And then Ian, I don't want you to speak on him, but what same kind of reason? Why did he move here?
Well, we had the Bronzed Aussies.
Okay.
We had started in '76,
right.
And we were ostracized a little bit in Australia because we were trying to take the sport mainstream, and the groovy people didn't think that was the right direction. There was resistance, but there wasn't resistance in America.
Okay.
They welcomed us here, going, those guys are the best guys in the world.
Yeah.
And we had a Bronzed Aussie surf shop on Main Street with Chuck Dent.
Oh, I didn't know that.
In late 70s, early 80s.
Wow.
And so
that's cool.
If we knew what we knew, if Kanga, Ian and I knew what we know today, Bronzed Aussies would probably still be a brand. We kind of knew what we were doing, but we eventually ran out of money in keeping the brand alive. The concept of the Bronzed Aussies was like the Harlem Globetrotters. There would always be a Bronzed Aussie surf team.
That's right.
There would always be junior Bronzed Aussies.
Okay.
And they would always go around the world on the world tour. Mm-hmm. That lasted until about 81.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what did you think of the hippie guys in Australia? Did you have thoughts
well,
on
what's
them?
funny is they were all transitioned past that, and you got, like we were just talking, you got a guy like Mick Fanning that's a millionaire 20 times over.
Yeah, good for him.
Right.
Yeah.
So the dream that we had, $1 million, came true.
Yeah. No, awesome. I picture Australian as, like you said before, everyone lives along the coast, so there's every other house has a surfboard or something. You said, right?
Yeah, demographically, every other house has a surfboard in it, according to the statistics. But I mean, these days surfing in Australia, not so much here, although it's got its presence here is a lot stronger, particularly since Carissa won a gold medal. But in Australia, like just this week, Tom Carroll and Pam Burridge were given Lifetime Achievement Awards by the New South Wales government.
Wow.
Not from WSL, by the government.
That's awesome. So they're getting recognized.
I didn't see President Biden giving Carissa Moore any sort of medal for winning, right?
Yeah.
she didn't get to go to the White House, right?
Right. That's crazy. And
So-
she should have.
She should have.
Yeah.
But, the one that I even call even more is, why isn't she on the Wheaties box?
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Great questions.
Like Shaun White has been on the
Yes, he
Wheaties
was.
box for snowboarding.
For snowboarding, like 10 or 12, 15 years ago.
A surfer has never been on the Wheaties box.
Even Kelly.
Kelly should have been on the Wheaties box.
Several times.
Well, just at least once.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. And then do you think there'll ever, another competitive question, do you think there'll ever be another competitor like Kelly?
You can never say never.
You can never say never. Everyone say never with Mark Richards 4,
well,
right?
that's just like last night watching the Laker and Clipper game, and LeBron's approaching Kareem Abdul-Jabbar being able to have the most score points ever in the history. And everyone's said Kareem's record will never get broken.
Yeah.
And it might. If LeBron keeps playing at the level he's playing, at 38 he was playing insane last night.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
And
I don't watch basketball.
he's got to play at least another 3 years to get there.
But it's possible.
It's definitely possible.
Okay. Do you think, I don't know, I can't remember what movie it was, but there was a movie where Kelly and Mark Richards are surfing next to each other right before, I don't know, it's either right before or right after Kelly got his 4 in a row.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, look what happened this year. Everyone said that Lane Beachley's 7 will never get broken in women's, and Steph got 8.
Yeah. Good for
Right?
her, too, once again.
Well, well, for me,
She's
that's
gnarly.
personal. Well, no, I went to school with her dad.
Oh, really?
Tweed River High School. Yeah.
Did he surf?
Oh, yeah, he's still surfing.
Oh, cool.
Jeff's still surfing.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was at Tweed River High School with Jeff Gilmore.
That's interesting.
Right. So
Small world, right?
So I had a personal involvement in that, attachment to that one.
Did you watch those heat closely that day?
Oh, of course I did.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. The finals day at Trestles is the most captivating day. There's people, detractors, that it shouldn't be held at Trestles and all that. But if you just talk about the day, it's every heat matters.
Every minute.
Every heat matters.
Yeah.
Like that's not the same on any given week of a championship tour event.
No.
Every heat doesn't matter. But at the last day of the WSL finals, it matters.
Do you like the top 5 going to that day? How do you thoughts on it?
I know why they're doing that, because they can build an audience.
It's like the Super Bowl or something, yeah.
Well, it's like what they do with NASCAR now, and they do it with the PGA too. They cut it down to the FedEx Cup finals,
No,
right?
it was exciting.
Right.
The first year, 2 years, or last year when they did it, it was super exciting. Everyone thought it was going to fail. I thought it might fail, but it was exciting.
But even this year, when the waves weren't that great, it was still exciting.
Good, yeah.
I mean, the final between Italo and Philippe was insane.
Yeah, no.
And when Steph went all the way from the bottom seed and knocked everyone off
One by one.
One by one.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Following that was insane.
Yeah.
It all mattered every time.
Yeah.
So we started going, wow, can she really do it? Can she win this next heat, right?
Yeah, so you're always good. You're good with progression and trying new things. It sounds
Absolutely.
like. Okay.
Yeah, no,
Don't have to be the same.
That was one of the things I learned early on from a great Australian shaper, Dick Van Strollen, who I accepted his induction into the last weekend, the International Surfboard Builders Hall of Fame, when he was teaching me the finer points of shaping and design. And he was known, like Dick Brewer, for experimenting and making different stuff. He always said, PT, never stop thinking outside the box.
Yeah, good. That's what keeps you fresh.
And I still live by that motto, you can learn something new every day. Don't stop learning. Don't stop trying new stuff.
So you being so involved in surfing, once again, are you always thinking surfing? If you see in something else like the NBA or something.
Well, when you're the executive director of the Huntington Beach International Surf Museum, it's a bit hard not to think about surfing every day.
How many days a week do you show up here?
We're open Thursdays through Sundays, and I'm often in here on Monday, just like we are today. It's Friday, but I'll show up on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in the morning because there's administrative stuff that I have to deal with. On Mondays, for instance, I have to know what the retail takings were for the weekend, and
Yeah. Also, you're on the Walk of Fame, and how was that? How did they tell you first?
Well, I was the founder of the concept, one of the founders of when we started the Walk of Fame. So and then the Hall of Fame across the street at Surf and Sport came a few years after that. It's an important part of the culture of downtown Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
We're Surf City.
Yeah.
You know, like, and you know, that stuff's really important to the trademark of Surf City.
Okay.
Like that we have the Walk of Fame and the Hall of Fame, and we have the International Surf Museum. That stuff's all really important to the city trademark. Yeah, I mean, pretty much, mate, I think surfing every day.
Okay.
I might not be addicted to going out anymore, but I still, my mind is all about surfing.
Yeah.
I love a lot of music though too. I have a vinyl collection, 6,000 vinyl records,
Wow.
which I still play on a turntable.
How do you pick the album of the day? Do you go through different moods?
Yeah, you go through. I like mostly all forms of music. So there's be on a jazz kick for a while, or I'll be on a rock and roll kick, or I'll be on a female artist like Joni Mitchell, or even back to Billie Holiday or Ella Fitzgerald. You know.
What about some of the new artists? Now they're redoing the albums. Everyone's has a record player. It seems like nowadays.
Well, no, you go to Barnes and Noble and see the vinyl section these days. It's
yeah, that's
crazy.
what I mean. Everyone's pushing their album.
No. Well, what it's done for me is my vinyl collection's gone up
bigger.
in value. No, it's gone up in value.
Oh, good.
Because I have all the originals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, first edition or whatever they're called, like first cut.
But yeah, I'm a big music, and I DJ a little bit every now and again too.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Spinning only vinyl.
Only vinyl.
No.
How are you?
No laptop. Well, I opened for a guy here in DJ Marino, and sometimes he'll get me come spin 10 records before he opens.
Okay, that's fun. That'd be super fun to watch you do that.
I mean, I DJ'd in China when I was there in China. They love funk over there. Rick James, Parliament Funkadelic.
Okay, so what's your thoughts on China and China surfing?
Well,
and they're late to the game, kind of.
Well, the culture's only been there, less than 2 decades.
Yeah.
But they're definitely going to improve fast, just because when a sport gets in the Olympics in China, that's everything.
Okay.
It's not about MLB or NBA or or NFL. It's about Olympic gold medals.
Okay.
And so when a sport gets in the Olympics, the government gets behind making it happen.
And with that being said,
they just finished in the ISA games we just had here in Huntington Beach.
Yep. How they do?
Finished 20th.
Not bad.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, no, when you think how little they've had the culture and the learning to surf, that's pretty bloody good, pretty fast.
With that, and not necessarily China, but just surf culture in general, how it's changed over the years and just changed. I won't say it's progressed, but it's just different than when you started and when I started till today.
Well, there's
Any
one
thoughts?
thing. No, it's back to what we were talking about a little bit before. And the wave pool thing is going to have a huge part of that. There's going to be more people introduced to going surfing, and if you get addicted, if you love that feel of riding a wave, then you don't leave. You keep doing it for as long as you can. Right.
Okay.
Because like I like right now. I said I lost the addiction, but if I do paddle out, I want to get a good wave.
Of course.
And if I get one, these days I come in because I don't want to spoil the feeling. Right?
Yeah.
You want to come out of the session with a feeling I had a good wave, right?
Right.
That never goes away.
Okay.
It's like having a good round of golf, right?
Okay.
Golfers go out and think they're going to have a better round than they did yesterday.
And if they don't, they're bummed.
Right, the same with surfing. You paddle out,
Of
you
course.
go, I'm going to get a better wave than I did yesterday.
Yeah. Or you're always like, one more.
One more.
Yeah.
Well, no, the one more can kill you because then you don't end up getting the one more and
Right.
you go in frustrated.
Yes. 100%. So the museum, going back to the museum in China, and just tying it all together with the culture, and even the new kids coming up,
Right.
weren't necessarily. It's always changed year in, year out, and so forth. And
Well, again, the answer is the addiction of riding a wave will never go away.
but what I'm trying to say, this place is important.
Well, no, historically to tell them where it came from is really important.
Okay,
That's why we had the last exhibit, Finding California Surf, which talked about how they discovered the surfing spots from San Francisco to Windansea and San Diego, and
Super rad.
right? And how the first surfing culture was really at Corona Del Mar. I mean that's where Duke would come down from Hollywood, and there were the Volti brothers, and this is in the 20s.
Okay.
And there was a little bit of culture going on up in the Santa Monica area.
Okay.
And they didn't find Malibu until like in the late 20s. So
Wow.
they
I didn't know that.
They didn't even have, so whatever surfing was going on was, in the Santa Monica beach area there where the pier is up there. And then down here, Corona del Mar, and then they found Santa Onofre, right?
Okay.
And so it progressed all the way through till around about 1963.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the California surf spots had been discovered, and then Robert August and Mike Hinson with Bruce Brown went around the world, and that changed everything. Now we were looking at the world to find surf spots.
Yeah, best movie ever. One of the best movies.
Right.
Right on, PT.
I think we got it covered, mate.
Well, you covered a lot, but I actually have one more question.
Yes, mate.
So you were talking about your signature board. How did you come up with your signature color you always seem to wear?
Yeah, well, that happened in the late 60s. I come from a large family. I'm the oldest of 6 siblings, and I grew up in a Victorian household where Mum was at home, and she would serve breakfast, and there'd be the breakfast table, and everyone would have to sit at the breakfast table. And in 1969, I was getting a new board. I was not PT the surf star yet. I was competitively, I wasn't even there yet, but I was getting a new surfboard. I had a job at the local pie shop as a pastry cook, assistant pastry cook, so I had money to buy my own boards and stuff. I just offhandedly said, as Mum was serving some breakfast, I go, Mum, I'm getting a new board. What colour should I get it? And then up that point, I had a blue one, a yellow one, and an orange one, and she goes, son, I think you should get your next board hot pink.
Okay.
That way they'll never miss you.
Yes.
So I got the next board hot pink. This is like late 69. And that was kind of a brave thing to do, a guy getting a hot pink surfboard in the
a
late
little bit
60s,
probably.
right?
Yeah.
That board took me to second in Queensland, which is like coming second in California in the juniors.
Yeah.
And it qualified me to be in the Australian titles for the first time.
Wow.
And I went, shit, this pink thing's working. I think I better stay on there. And it became my trademark. And now, you see, I wear a lot of pink stuff because companies send me pink stuff because they know I'll wear it.
That's awesome.
Like that, the famous of that transition was in around 74. I get a box in the mail in Australia at Gordon & Smith in Sydney. I was down there shaping. And it's from Quicksilver, from Alan Green. This is the early days. Quicksilver wasn't even in America yet.
Yeah, real early.
And inside was 2 pair of pink and black trunks.
Oh, right.
Those I took to wear in Hawaii that winter.
Okay.
And I was in that Smirnoff, the one that 30-foot waves, which I got in the final. And I wore those pink trunks. And the next thing you knew, Surfing Magazine ran a poster of me in the center of the magazine, dropping in a 30-foot Waimea in the pink trunks.
Yes.
Right?
Wow.
And so pink became my trademark.
And you've stuck with it.
I should have patented it.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this, PT.
Absolutely, Mike. It was fun rapping.
Yeah, it was good times. And a great museum. You guys are doing a great job.
Yeah, come see about the birth of pro surfing in
Easy
America.
to find.
Yep.
Right off of Main Street.
Just look
here.
for the big surfboard in the parking lot.
There you go.
Come
Perfect.
visit.
Come on, visit, everybody. All right, there's nothing else, PT. We're out of here.
We are done.
All right, this is Mike and PT. And
Great talking.
Super fun. And everyone, we'll talk to you guys later. Adios.
100-foot out joke food. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. 100-foot out joke food. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. Your boo on my didgeridoo. They calling me Duke. I'm stacking the loot. I'm ripping your chick in the coop. She grabbing a hold of my leggy. They jelly, they Gucci my weddy. The friends of Giuseppe, the chain is so heavy. She think that I'm charging the Eddie. 100-foot out choke poo. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. 100-foot out choke poo. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. Surf trap, I'm stacking that money. Cash. Your shorts a red Ferrari. They start to calling me Dundee. Diamonds are surfing McFlurry. She want me to teach her to surf. Splash. I'm pulling up, ripping the verse. I'm leaving these kooks in the hearse. They get moved 100 foot on their head. They get work. 100 foot out choke. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns guns like my food. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. 100-foot out choker. 100 racks on a soft dude. Slippery. Big guns like my food. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. You can't let me do. I'm stacking the loot. I'm ripping your chick in the coop. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. They calling me dude. I'm stacking the loot. I'm ripping your chick in the coop.
Hey, you guys, Endless Summer box set. This thing is legit. It's authentic, numbered certificate in it. It has a 5-frame film strip from the original print. You will literally own a piece of history. It has a specially minted bronze medallion. Dude, that thing's sick. Okay, there's so much more here. Go to the show notes. There's a link on there. Go check this piece of history out. This thing's rad. Seriously. Smithsonian American History Museum has it. It took 4 years of research with 3.5 in production, all hand assembled. This thing's rad. So much to this awesome box set. Remastered DVD, sharper images than the original film, but dude, this thing's so sick. Link in the show notes.